figure out a background. I'm in my basement that was like severely flooded in the
Ooh,
July. I don't know if you recall the big floods of July. My basement is like uninhabitable now.
brutal.
Yet I work down here all the time, probably inhaling all sorts of yeah. But
The wonderful stuff
that's
of
just
Chicago
life.
home ownership. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's in complete disarray, and yet I work down here every day. It's like a dungeon. But it was once a very lovely place, and of course, when I went out west for one of the Fall Out Boy shows that we did, like 20 minutes before I went on stage, the house sitter was like, "Oh yeah, there's like 8 inches of water in the basement." So,
Wonderful.
yeah, but yeah, great to finally connect with you. And yeah, dad life has been intense. I like my wife was like, "You need to cancel." I'm not canceling again. I got to talk basketball. So yeah, it all
Well,
worked out great.
we got an agenda because the basketball season has started. So thank you for joining.
Of course.
It's been we've been talking about this for a little bit, and I think this will be a fun one, both because the NBA season has just started, and also we are both Chicagoans, and we go kind of. I feel like there will be a nice trip down a nostalgic realm. So I think there'll be a lot of fun stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, like I said, great to have you on. But firstly, the thing I like to ask everyone is what you're currently listening to.
Um, Footballhead. I mean, it's yeah, it's my new band, but it's also like I kind of came on as the manager of the band.
Mm,
Actually, like a year ago this weekend, when the bowl season was just kind of getting started, it was like the first get together to watch a Bulls game of last season. Um, I went over my neighbor Liam. He lives three doors down, like the band. Um, diehard Bulls fan, and I went over to watch the game, and I think they ended up losing the game. I want to say they were playing like the Pistons or
it's a safe bet.
something. Yeah, for sure. Um, but last season we were going into the year with a lot of optimism. I felt like 2 years ago at the All Star break, being in first place. Obviously, Zach getting hurt down the stretch um, affected the season. And then, last year was I'm a White Sox fan and a Cub fan for that matter, but I had transitioned from a severely disappointing baseball season into a severely disappointing NBA season.
The
But I
Reinsdorf
had gone,
curse.
yeah, exactly. And I had gone over to watch the game. And when it was over, everyone was kind of hanging out. And this guy, Max Miller, a guy who lives in the neighborhood, put on one of the other kids who's hanging out there, his band, Footballhead. And my initial thought was, man, what a stupid name. Uh, and he put the tune on, and like at first I was like, oh, this feels like right up the middle '90s nostalgia. But then by like the second verse, I was like, oh, there's something kind of like not a serve or something going on here. So I ended up like staying out late and kind of following this kid around, picking his brain a little bit. And we went to this bar, Edelweiss,
Yeah.
on Belmont, right by my house, and um, he sang "The Sweetness" by Jimmy Eat World karaoke, and then he
Oh,
did
sweet.
"My Sacrifice" by Creed. And unbeknownst to me, that was sort of like the blueprint for football, and sort of like butt rock meets emo. And
Hilarious.
yeah, like kind of this younger mindset of like no rules barred and no holds barred, no rules, and just make music that feels good. And so, yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I mean, I've been listening to a lot of new, I mean, he's churning out songs left and right. So I'm
Mm,
trying to, guide him towards the promised land as much as I can,
right.
while also admitting that I know very little. But yeah, that's kind of opened up the doors to this whole new wave of. I almost feel like it does it an injustice to call it emo, but I feel like that's just the part of me that's jaded from years in the business. Like, um, I do. It reminds me of when emo felt like a really exciting, beautiful thing in my life, like when it was Vagrant Records, and
Mhm.
um, I feel like there's this new wave of like sort of pretending like the moment when I got into being in successful emo bands, it's almost as if somebody like erased that moment, and like it's picking up, and I don't mean that in a self-deprecating
No,
way, but
sure.
I think there was sort of like a swing for the fences in terms of mainstream culture that was happening
Yeah.
right then. And I think that the swagger of Adam Lazara had kind of trickled into some of the bands, certainly mine. And I feel like there's kind of this new wave of bands that are sort of like picking up where Vagrant and some of those labels
Yeah.
like left off when their thing sort of got derailed by like I guess the mainstream
Sure.
names that you hear. And so that's really exciting to me because that moment was really pure and special for me.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's cool at, you know, at 35 instead of 15 to get to like revisit some of that. So I've been listening to so many bands that are adjacent to that, not only because I like them, but also trying to better understand the landscape in which
Hmm.
I'm trying to break. The two artists that I'm kind of working closely with, Snow Elliott and Footballhead, um, trying to like navigate that. So I've been listening to a lot of like Anxious,
Yeah.
Super Bloom,
I'm guessing
Super
Daisy.
Heaven, yeah, Daisy, Enum Claw,
Hmm.
just really trying to like absorb that. Um, Slow Joy. There's a lot of bands that are like um, doing their own unique thing, and that's kind of why I compare it to that early emo stuff where even when the Academy was first started to tour, we would go out with Armor for Sleep, who I feel like Footballhead's kind of like adjacent to in some way. And then like the Snake, the Cross, the Crown, who I felt like was like they were like more similar to like the Arcade Fire
Right.
than Drive Through Records or something like that.
Yeah.
So I felt like there was a lot of ambition in a scene that sort of became the new hair metal,
Mhm.
um, unwittingly, or maybe just unwittingly to us, but so it's really exciting, and it's also
Yeah.
just an appreciation for like just bands with guitars. During the pandemic, I'd kind of gotten really into like finger style country. Some people want to call it folk. I just call it all country.
Sure.
Um, and I just kind of tapped out of contemporary music and was really into just this sort of tumbleweed kind of music. And I think that's just where my mindset was in the pandemic, where
Sure.
it was kind of this lonesome drifter
I
sound.
feel like we all have waves. Yeah. Like I'm a big fan of Gregory Alan Iskov. I don't know if you listen to
Yeah,
him. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, yeah, we all have like kind of phases of what we're into.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, when it comes to what you're talking about with Football Head, and it is you even addressed it yourself. It is interesting that call it waves of emo or whatever you want to call it, but like it is, you have these waves that keep coming back around, and I feel like you're right. Like this Football Head does kind of echo the era that you were playing in with the Academy is, and it's really interesting to see that come around again.
yeah. I feel like it's echoing the moment that drove us to want to be a part of it,
Yeah.
not necessarily echoing the part that we were a part of. I think like things shift so fast,
Yeah.
especially when, like around the time our first record came out, I feel like there was a huge shift in that scene. Um, Even just predating us, with Yellow Card being on
Yeah.
TRL and Screaming Infidelities kind of becoming like an actual mainstream hit, and then War All the Time and The Artist in the Ambulance, and then the major label chase for the next big band, and that sort of thing started to occur. Whereas, I mean, when the Academy has started, I can vividly remember a conversation of we're going to be as big as Fairweather, and that was like we just wanted to be Fairweather, and like I think 99% of the Academy's audience would be like, well, who?
Yeah, that's
Um,
super admirable comparison.
that's just what we wanted to be,
Yeah.
and then I think we were able to recognize that there was an opportunity for something bigger than that, and
Sure.
the writing sort of shifted on the debut for Fueled by Ramen. Um, and we were kind of pulling from influences that you weren't hearing all the time in the scene. There's songs on Almost Here that are directly derived from Third Eye Blind songs on Out of the
Yeah,
Vein and like stuff that no one in the emo scene would have admitted at that point in time they
totally.
were influenced by. I mean, I remember it wasn't cool that I liked the Smashing Pumpkins as much as I do. And so I kind of there's a lot more like nose in the air, sort of like clout chasing, whereas I feel like right now with this wave of bands, it's just like really lean into your influences and enjoy what you like. I mean, when I met this kid Ryan, the Footballhead, it was like, so what are your influences? And he's like, Tom DeLonge, and I'm like, what? Like, I didn't expect him to say that. I expected him to be like, I don't know, the Jesus and Mary chain or something,
Right,
you know,
right.
like
My
who
Bloody
I love, you know.
Valentine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I love all those bands, but
Yeah.
like, it was cool to have like a very earnest answer come from him of like, yeah, I'm, you know, I was like, well, people are saying this sounds like Hum or Super Drag, and he's like, yeah, well, those bands are cool too,
Yeah, yeah.
but I
Well,
like Tom DeLonge, you know.
right. I mean, it's like it is a generational thing right now. And what you were talking about with the echoing back too, it's multiple levels because you have guys like Footballhead, these bands like very earnestly sounding like this, but pop music is doing it too, where you have Olivia Rodrigo sounding like Paramore and stuff. So
Yeah,
you're getting both ends of like kind of the Academy's career a little bit.
yeah, and it's cool. I mean, speaking of Olivia Rodrigo, you know, her songs are written by, you know, an emo star,
Yeah.
you know, so it's interesting to me in the 20 years that I've been kind of navigating this stuff, how much of it stems from a group of people that were like Warped Tour adjacent.
Yeah.
You know, I even when I was playing with Carly Rae Jepsen, you know, like she would come in and be like, "Oh, well, the president of my label, John Janik," you know, and it's like, "Well, I go way back with him."
Right.
Or, you know, I got this new A&R guy, Sam Reback, and it's like, well, yeah, I know him from then, and he kind of hit it big with Death Cab for Cutie Plans record, and like,
Hmm.
I feel like that wave of music kind of set up the next 20 years of like who was gonna be the tastemakers in music. You know, you get a guy like Johnny Minardi who was like a suburban high school buddy, and he's bringing a song like Dance Monkey to the world, and it's a massive success. You know that to the level of like the Macarena or
Yeah.
something like that. You know, so it's cool and it's crazy. You know, to kind of have had a front row seat to watching these things happen in real time and sort of the ebb and flow of, you know, there was a moment where Johnny was let go from Fueled by Ramen and now he runs the whole label, you know. So
Hmm.
it's kind of you stick around long enough and success finds you, you
Right.
know.
Yeah. And I guess one thing I'd like to hear a little more about too is like when you talked about Academy is and kind of the genesis of it a little bit. It seems like everything happened so fast. Like,
Yeah.
do you elaborate on that a little bit? I guess.
Yeah, I mean it was sort of a right place, right time kind
Hmm.
of thing. You know, I prior to forming the Academy as was very much like I mean, I was very young. The Academy was formed shortly after my 15th birthday. Um, but prior to that, I had, you know, been going to a lot of shows at this place called Back to the Office in Hoffman Estates that got shut down for serving beer to underage kids. And then
I think we
the
talked about
shows
Knights
kind
of Columbus. You know.
yeah, the shows moved over to Knights of Columbus after that, which, you know, I had heard of kind of on the periphery of things, but hadn't been to a show there. And then very quickly, it kind of became the center of my universe. But it had been going on for a while. You know, I
Hmm.
think it had kind of been more like hardcore, which was never quite my thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Rise Against was playing there a lot.
yeah, absolutely. And even bands like, you know, Pete Wentz had a band with Tim from Rise
Right.
Against, and Patrick from Fall Out Boy played drums in a band called Patterson that would play at the Knights of Columbus. And, you know, the bands that kind of got me excited in the scene, first and foremost, was a band called Logan's Loss, and they were from Downers Grove. And they were kind of like ska punk without the horns,
Hmm.
maybe adjacent to like slapstick or something
Sure.
that would be on Asian Men Records. I just met Mike Park from Asian Men Records over the weekend for the first time.
I think he's a
Completely
basketball fan
geeked
too.
out. Yeah, I could see that for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, he walked by me at the festival this weekend, and I just had to introduce myself and geek out a little on him.
Yeah.
I mean, that was sort of my launch pad into what the next 20 years of my life would be in one way or another, um, and counting. But when I started going to nights to Columbus, that's when things just started to pick up more. The biggest band on the scene at that point in time was Knockout. Um, their drummer is now in the Plain White Tees, has been for
Hmm.
quite some time, but they were sort of like the kings of the scene. 504 Plan was probably in second place. Jason Mim,
The Mikey
um,
Russell.
yeah, Mikey Russell and Nick Schmecka, who is a super close friend of our band still to
Yeah.
this day. Tom Conrad, who would later be in the Academy as for a while. Um, those were kind of the kings. And then this band August Premier, that was the first band from the local scene to sign to Feel by Ramen. That kind of
Okay.
opened up that door. Um, but I went because Bill from Academy was playing as Remember Maine, which
Yeah.
everyone at Record Breakers would call him Billboard Confessional, um, because everything was an open D,
Okay. Yeah.
very very sad boy. But for a high school kid, pretty good. I mean, there weren't a lot of high school kids I knew that were writing in open D and these kind of
Sure.
like, and so he was onto something. And I had met him when I was in the eighth grade. He had started a like kind of a Asian Man Records type band with my older brother.
Mhm.
Um, my older brother, the extent of punk rock he was into was like the Bloodhound Gang and like SR-71 or something.
Alien Ant Farm.
Yeah, like that kind of more like the radio stuff, and
Yeah.
Blink, of course. But
Yeah.
um, the singer of that band, they didn't have a drummer, and they were just kind of starting to write songs in our basement. And the singer, this kid Trevor, he came in and said there was a new kid on the school bus from Elk Grove who played the drums, and so they brought him over. We had a drum kit, um, and he came over and he put a kick drum head on it that had all these stickers on it, and it was like Skank and Pickle,
Yeah.
MU 330, the Honor System, the Lawrence Arms,
Mhm.
and I didn't know what any of it was, but it was like just the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Like it was something I didn't understand, but it was like it felt so interesting.
Sure.
I mean, what I was listening to at that point in time was probably like Deftones, Incubus, which again, bands
Who
that like
wasn't?
would be
Yeah.
really lame to say that you're
Yeah.
into.
Deftones
But
is
now, but
awesome.
right, but now like the I mean, I think the Deftones navigated the transition from new
Yeah.
metal into their own thing really well, and I think they were also really influential on some heavy hitters in emo. But um, I took a lot of flack from the punk rock kids I knew for playing a Warwick bass and slapping and being really into Incubus and 311. But they were playing together, and then eventually, I was playing in sort of like a funk band, like a Mr. Bungle Incubus kind of thing. And eventually my band broke up because Bill Beckett started writing songs and playing bass. So they got a new drummer,
Mhm.
and he became the new singer of their band. Um, and my band broke up because every time he'd try to practice, Bill would have taken off with my bass to go do whatever they were doing. And
Mhm.
he had come over and downloaded a bunch of music onto our Napster, or maybe it had just LimeWire had maybe just
Oh
gotten
yeah.
in there, but it was that moment in music, like 2000, um, late 2000, and it was the summer I was about to go into high school, and he had downloaded Rockstown and Juice Magic by Saves the Day, You're Dead by Alkaline Trio and
Hmm.
Radio, um, Reggie and the Full Effect, Girl, Why'd You Run Away? Um, there were just a handful of songs from that scene that found their way onto my computer, but I completely immersed myself and kept downloading everything I could find and getting on the
Totally.
internet in that early moment. So by the time I got to high school, I had gotten a Saves the Day t-shirt, and I went to school, and Bill and I were both wearing the same Saves the Day shirt on my first day of high school. And we just kind of became friends. Actually, I remember the first time I really talked to him was on 9/11. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, we were second period gym class, or maybe it was third period gym class. and they kind of canceled the day for us just to
Yeah.
like, I don't think anyone knew what to do. So we were kind of just sitting there, and Bill and I kind of struck up a conversation about bands. And I think there wasn't a day after that that we didn't talk music and
Yeah.
kind of, I think Stay What You Are had just come out, and he gave me that. And that just completely blew the lid off of everything for me because it was an actual good record.
Hmm.
And I don't say that with any condescension to the other things that I mentioned. And Through Being Cool is certainly a great record, but
Totally.
Stay What You Are was just a complete, even to this day, I just watched them when we were young this weekend, and they completely surpassed my expectations. I not in any sort of, you know, I don't mean this as an insult, but
Of course.
I don't think I've really dug in on a record since In Reverie. And they
Yeah.
played everything you would want to hear. Like the set list was just perfect, and it sounded great. And I didn't even care that it wasn't Evan D'Amico on bass. So whoever they
Sure.
have is just killing it.
I feel like
And
At Your Funeral was like the first song that really like kind of entered my head and like wouldn't leave. And I felt like really cool listening to it, you know?
yeah, I mean, at that point, I don't think I had heard bands that were sort of like had elements of Americana in their
Sure.
emo music, and so from that point on, it was like Vagrant everything, the Anniversary, Kofax I was super into, and like all
And
these
speaking of Josh Berwanger, a former podcast guest.
I saw, yeah, I saw. I have a funny story. The one time that I've met him, I'll have to get into. Um, he came to it when I was playing in Say Anything. He came to a show, and we were like drinking beers. I don't think I was drinking because when I when I was in my own band, I would drink heavily before I played. But as soon
Sure.
as I became a hired gun, it was a different level of professionalism,
Yeah.
especially in a band where I needed maximum dexterity to play the set. Um, but we were kind of hanging out on the bus doing the pre-show ritual, and Guns N' Roses came up. And I don't feel as passionately about this as I did at the time, but I basically said Guns N' Roses was my least favorite band of all time. And then apparently Josh's favorite band of all time is Guns N' Roses.
So
And
funny.
so we kind of got into this heated argument that wasn't meant to be heated. And then I went out and I knew that he was from the Anniversary, and I was a huge fan. So I felt kind of embarrassed, but I just didn't like Guns N' Roses. And then I went on stage at the Beaumont Club in Kansas City, and I had to piss worse than any show in the history of my all my years of playing. And it was so uncomfortable. And like the set, 2 songs in, I was in pain, and I had the whole way to go and a headlining set. And Josh was just standing there, like pissed at me on the side of the stage, and I was just having such a hard time. It was honestly like one of the worst shows I've ever played.
God.
Him and I hit it off after the show anyway, but the Anniversary was awesome.
Hmm.
I think right around that time that uh, Stay What You Are came out, there was like that Vagrant Across America tour, and then there was like a sampler that came out, and Hot Rod Circuit. I mean, that was such a great label.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I honestly, I think it was the best of the scene. I wish that sort of layered emo sound of On a Wire and Stay What You
Yeah.
Are. I mean, I think that was it.
I
And
think
New
there's some
Amsterdam's Worse for the Wear. I mean, that's an
totally.
awesome record.
I think there's some really special like eras of labels. Like you mentioned that era Vagrant. I think Fueled by Ramen when you guys were coming up was that. I think there's that era of Saddle Creek that was really interesting.
Yeah.
It you know
Drive
there
Through, of course, had a big moment. Yeah.
exactly there's like, communities, and a lot of it is obviously location based too. Based on where all the bands and these labels are from, but there's some moments in time that really catch you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I had found my way to Knights of Columbus, and it was just the most perfect moment to have found my way there. I went for the first time, kind of helping Bill out when he was doing a show, and um, I helped set up before the show started, and so I met Abby Valentine, who was like the promoter of those shows, and
Oh
from
man,
that day,
that
from
name, I remember
yeah,
that
I
name,
had
and it entered my head
Chad
for the first time
Powell
in
and
years.
Abby Valentine, and from that point on, they would let me into shows for free, and it just became everything
Yeah.
to me. And you know, I'd never done a drug, I had never drank alcohol. It was all just this positive, great place to be, you know, and I made all these friends that were positive influences on me. You know, I'm sure my mom was like mortified. I was 15. I had 24-year-old Pete Wentz picking me up in the
You're
car
right.
to go to the it was like an underpass in Roselle that all the punks would hang out at. And you know, there was probably some seedy stuff going on, but like for the most part, it was a bunch of people eating root beer and or drinking root beer and eating
Sure.
like Arby's or some crap and just kind of talking bands. And all my high school friends were getting into debauchery, and I was kind of discovering this really positive like um thing that would just shape
Absolutely.
everything.
I feel like that is, that is definitely a time in someone's life that I had the very same thing happen. I'm a little bit younger than you, not by much, but um,
Where'd
I
you go to high
thought
school?
I went to Elk Grove High School.
Awesome, man.
So yeah,
Yeah.
and everyone, I feel like every high school has people trying. I was trying to do a band. It didn't really work out too well, but feel like there's a lot of attending shows in the area, and I feel like there were just so many bands that were great in the Chicago area in that time. Like I think back to like, the junior varsity and which I got tickets to see that Spitalfield Junior Varsity show, which I'm excited about.
When is that?
That I think it's in Naperville, which is interesting.
Oh yeah,
Um
I'd go out to Naperville.
yeah, and it's I think it's early December.
Cool. I'll try to make it out to that. Yeah, I'd spoken to Mark from Spitalfield the other
Yeah.
day. He had asked if I wanted to go to the Bulls opener, and
That's probably
of
why he
course,
followed me.
awesome. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I certainly wanted to go, but while I was in Vegas, my wife and daughter both got very, very sick, and
Yeah,
having just gotten home, I felt like it was probably not the nice dad thing to do to
totally.
put my basketball needs first. I actually missed the game last night. I was putting my daughter down to bed and recorded the start. And when she was finally asleep, I started the game. And then, like, in the second, I got a notification by the score app on my phone of the final score.
Mm,
And it
yep.
was it was a disappointing
It
score. So
was
I just turned the game off.
it was close for so long, and then
Yeah.
that's
I
what the
mean, you
Bulls
know,
did.
the
Let's
Oklahoma
talk
City team
basketball
is,
then. Yeah,
yeah, for sure. I mean, I can get off on a tangent about any topic. So feel free to reel me in at any time.
totally.
Especially when it comes to the local scene in that era. I definitely, you know, I did some extensive interviews for that book that Chris Payne came out with. The
Oh, cool.
um, Where Are Your Boys Tonight? That's been doing pretty well.
Awesome.
Um, that Billy Corgan posted about saying, "Why is there no mention of the Smashing Pumpkins?" And what are you talking about,
Because
man?
not even the same thing, but
Yeah, I mean, trust me, I talk about the pumpkins any chance I get,
yeah,
and it just
absolutely.
didn't seem applicable in the book, you know. But yeah, it basketball, man. Yeah, I mean that was my dream job until I realized I was no good, and then bass guitar was easier.
That's how it happens. I feel like everyone that comes on my podcast is like, you're always like playing basketball, and then at a certain point you're like, it's not cutting it, we're making the switch. But there is, I mean, I feel like there is an interesting segue of something recently that obviously people couldn't stop talking about, and that was the emo Jimmy Butler thing.
He's great, you know.
What a guy.
I kind of had a moment where I really didn't like him
Agreed.
because of the Timberwolves stuff,
Yeah.
you know, and it's a players' league, and I can understand when you're unhappy with your situation, wanting out of it. But you know, I'm also of the mind that when you're making, you know, millions and millions of dollars to play a game, and the rest of us are toiling away in corporate America, or even worse, retailer, you know, something. Um, it's a little bit not. It's not my favorite thing
Yeah,
when what's going on with James Harden right now is just, you know,
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
mean, what are you doing? The Sixers are a legitimate contender, and you are making it worse.
Well,
You
today
know, do you want your, yeah?
they're
What happened?
they're losing to freak time. So
Yeah, is that right? Yeah, I mean, it's you know, I saw something they like uninvited him to traveling with the team or something. I mean, but he brought that on himself. I mean, there was a moment where I was kind of like, and I don't like James Harden very much. I
Sure.
obviously, I mean, the obviously there's stats and he's a very good player, but
Yeah.
like, he's not somebody that I would be gunning for the Bulls to get because I think there's just something toxic about him.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
and I think if it was like Zach and Pat Williams to the Sixers for Harden, I might entertain the idea or something.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but I don't know that that's the solution, and I don't necessarily want to be a team that transplants superstars. We've seen a lot of that,
Hmm.
or just at least not that type of superstar. I certainly would have been happy to get Damian Lillard,
Of course.
um, somebody that's put in their time with a specific team and then comes over, not a guy who's just chasing opportunity, and like Durant or something like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I probably would love to see him in a Bulls uniform,
Definitely.
but
Yeah.
but yeah, Butler, the emo Jimmy Butler thing. I mean, it's been fun, especially like as somebody who does the grid. When you put in his name in, and I never play him. It's too the rarity score on a Jimmy Butler is not
Oh
very
yeah.
good, but it
In the
it's
ESPN
been
fantasy
entertaining.
leagues, he's going to be there all season.
Yeah, is that right? Is it too late
Yeah.
to join, or is it already?
It's we drafted, man. It's already
Yeah, I
happened.
figured. I was talking to the guys, and they were like, "I don't think you have the commitment level to
Yeah.
make it happen." I mean, it's I have a hard time doing fantasy football with some of my buddies from my
Yeah.
from my day job. I'm share the same record as or no, I guess the Chicago Bears have won one more game now than I have.
Oh boy.
But yeah, the basketball season has started. I think
It's
it's so funny
exciting.
as a Chicago sports fan. It's so funny the small sample size that we get and the negativity that pours in.
Oh god.
I mean,
Yeah.
everyone is saying the Bulls are terrible. Why would we even suffer through this? And it's like, well, come on now. I mean, on paper, they're not necessarily different than the team that we loved 2 seasons ago, or even last season. I mean, I'm here for it. I'm going to be watching.
Yeah, I'll
Like,
definitely be watching. Yeah. And I
do I
think
think they're the championship favorite? Of course not. But
do I
look
think
at the
they
Arizona
changed
Diamondbacks right now.
true, but
Yeah,
do I think they changed anything really since last season? And I don't know if you saw that Zach Levine called a team meeting after game one. It's
yeah. Well,
like,
good. He should. We need
yeah,
a leader. It's what
yeah.
the White Sox lack is any sort of leader.
Oof.
The Bulls do need that, and I think that's been part of their identity struggle is
Sure.
is is not really knowing if. I'm sure in that locker room, it's who's the leader here, DeMar or Zach?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think 2 years ago, I think DeMar really showed that he came to play. And then last year, I felt like neither one of them quite ran with it. And it was sort of the situation we had late in like Derrick Rose and Jimmy together, where it was
True.
like, what are we doing
Yeah.
here? So I mean, I have optimism. I'm
Yeah,
certainly going to watch. I mean, the NBA is fun because the other teams are fun, and you can watch games just to kind
absolutely.
of be a part of the dialogue. And
I think when it
um,
comes to, professional sports, I mean, obviously football, all games are national games, but I love NBA national games. They're just, NBA on TNT. There's nothing like it.
yeah, nothing like when the Bulls get completely embarrassed on
Yeah.
national TV too.
We only get like 2 games this year or something like that. I feel like we're not getting a lot of
We
national
kind of
games.
lost that opportunity. I think
Yeah.
like two after the season we had 2 years ago, I felt like they were going to get more prime time, Christmas, things like that, and they
Hmm.
just kind of they've just taken themselves out of contention, even though they have some great players and promise. I mean, they have three all stars
Yeah.
essentially. Um,
So this
but
season, who outside of the Bulls, what big expectations are you seeing? Like, who do you think's going to break out? Any sort of things to look forward to this season?
as far as breakout goes, I kind of would think that OKC is actually going to be a team to watch. I think that,
Yeah,
um,
Shea picked up right where he left off.
yeah, I mean, I saw something recently where there was like a ranking of players, and I saw him like in the top five or something like that, and I was like, whoa! Like I think OKC as a team post Durant, Harden,
I
and
know.
Westbrook has kind of just fallen off my radar.
Yep.
Um, but I will say, as just like a pure fan of the league, they do for like a very new team. They do have a pretty cool identity. The name Thunder is not that cool, but those like bright blue, that color of blue they wear
Yeah.
just has this feel to it. And it sounds so lame, but like that was sort of what drove me to be a sports fan, was sort of like I'm not really into fashion or anything like that, but there was something about the uniform that I always
Yeah.
just was drawn to, and the logo. And um I think it's part of what made me a sports fan, and it's also part of like why I can remember player movement so well.
Oh yeah.
It's like
Well,
there's something
the
about,
90s, that's like so interlinked of
yeah,
the fashion and like those jerseys, like the greatest era of, sports jerseys and things like that. So
yeah. I remember the only time I've ever met Nate from the format and fun and all that. Uh, he revealed that he's like a big Raptors fan, and
mm,
I was like, "Well, that's an interesting
surprising.
thing."
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, "That's interesting," and he was like, "It's those purple uniforms."
Yep.
And like, it's funny because those are kind of looked down on as like some of the uglier uniforms, and I thought they were so cool.
Yeah,
Mighty Mouse and like, um, I mean, I thought that look was super cool. I mean, I even thought the
definitely.
teal Pistons uniforms were kind of cool. So it's like
Those Vancouver Grizzlies jerseys are great too.
awesome,
Yeah.
awesome.
And
I
I'm glad
love when,
the Memphis Grizzlies brought them back as throwbacks.
yeah, I think it's super cool, and I love that like Pacific Northwest sleeve rim that even the Memphis
Totally.
Grizzlies put on. I think it's a cool tribute
Timberwolves had
that.
the trees
I
too.
love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like, I actually saw something on the internet today. It was like ranking Timberwolves uniforms or something, and I was looking at that. And there was one from like maybe a couple years ago. There might have been a city edition, but it was like a throwback with like a brighter blue color
Hmm.
and some texture on it, but it had those sleeves. And like, I
Totally.
mean, that's a look, that's a winning look. I personally think in the NBA, like if you're not going to win a championship unless you look like it. Like,
Yeah.
and I stand by that. I mean, the Nuggets have had some pretty bad looks, and I feel like they finally got back to a pretty good place, and paying tribute to like their '90s look. And then they
Right.
also had that like multicolored kind of Roy G. Biv thing going on, and like
Hmm.
uh, they like I love it. I mean, I don't know what's going on with the Utah Jazz neon yellow thing. Um, I think just the plain purple uniform John Stockton era
Right.
is one of the best looking uniforms in the NBA
And I
history. I
think they
mean,
brought those back too this year as a city edition
yeah,
throwback or
yeah.
something like that.
But why is that the city edition?
Yeah.
I actually thought they were getting onto something with like the orange and like it wasn't like the pure orange uniform. I didn't like that one. It was the one that was like kind of just incorporated orange into this like dark purple hue thing. Like
Hmm.
it reminded me of like going to Bryce Canyon or something. Like it
Very national park feeling. Yeah.
yeah, it looked kind of like Utah, and
Hmm.
I thought they were onto something. Then out of nowhere, they're like neon, and
Yeah.
it like called to that like Atlanta Hawks
Uh-huh.
like 3D court
Oh
thing
yeah.
they were doing. Like,
When
and
they
I
had
didn't
like
hate that
the
because
Atlanta
it
Hawks
like,
triangles on the jersey, hated that.
yeah, it was just like, I mean, I think at that point the Hawks had to try something,
Yeah.
but like, um, but yeah, man, basketball's back. It's exciting. Baseball's been, I mean, I have to admit, I'm a bigger baseball guy, mostly because Ken Burns made a film about it, and like,
Hmm.
if he did that for basketball, I think I would just amp up my
Yeah.
romanticism for it. But um, I'm just big into like that sort of U.S. history stuff. And um, there was a year where I was on tour that I just had like the DVD player in my bunk, just constantly had Ken Burns baseball on, and I
Totally.
just but I'm kind of getting disillusioned by it just because Chicago is upsetting me, uh, and so when I started playing in this football head band, they are so NBA
Oh,
obsessed
awesome.
that it's kind of brought me back into the fold, and they put me on the grid maybe like 2, 3 months ago, and I haven't like
Hmm.
missed a day. Um,
Dude, speaking of, should we just do one right now?
Sure.
So
Yeah. I mean, I might suck. I usually do
so
it first thing in the morning, but
the
yeah.
good thing is we're gonna do hoop grids, not immaculate grid, because hoop
Okay.
grids you can keep throwing them out.
Which might even be more embarrassing than if I can't pull some depth.
Let's try it out though. You never know.
Yeah, I'm into it.
And we'll try and be quick with
Okay,
it.
we got a
And
Bulls row. All
that's already a
right.
gimme, like I
Ooh,
mean
Bulls
Bulls.
Rockets. That's a tough one. Okay, I got this.
I'll give you the first go ahead.
Okay. Oh, so we take turns?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Is that how we do it? Okay.
Yeah,
Um, Bulls, Cavs. I'm gonna go Ron Harper.
love it. Gold. I'll take it. That's why I
Okay.
like this one is you get that visual uh benefit of like, oh man, it's diamond. It feels good.
Yeah, how could they not have a photo of Ron Harper
I
though?
don't no one has photos in these for some reason. Like there's very few people who have photos. Um
Yeah.
God, Bulls, Rockets. I mean, Bulls 25 points per game. Oh, you know what? Did Bob Sura play for both? Nope, he did not. Okay.
Ooh. All right.
But that's you can keep guessing though. That's why I like
Yeah.
it.
Bulls, Rockets, Tabo Cephalosha.
Woo! Speaking of thunder, there you
There we
go.
go.
1%. We got it. Uh I will go with this one. I mean, I hate to just like it's not gonna be very high. Um Pippin. Two.
Yeah, pretty good actually.
Yeah.
I would think Ben Gordon might have like a pretty, but it's so interesting with this because sometimes there's less famous guys, but like
Oh
recency
man,
bias kind of.
I just misread it. It's a single 25-point game.
Oh wow, 25 point.
So
Yep, game. Okay, that's a
so
totally.
we have to redo that one because
Yeah,
we
it's
can
like
get better.
Thaddeus.
Totally. I mean, like
Did
who
Thaddeus score 25 plus, or is that
Thad
is that?
Young?
Yeah, I feel like he did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
What is this color behind him?
So that's I think diamond, and then there's one more even
Okay,
below it. If you get under 0.01, like one, basically, it's like
okay.
it's
So we'll
it's
keep
a
playing.
galaxy. Yeah.
Well, we'll go Celtics, Rockets. I'm gonna go with Tice. Daniel, is that how you say his name?
Yeah. Silver.
Okay,
Okay.
so he's silver. All right.
That's fine.
We'll,
Rockets one per
we'll
game
improve that.
season. Um,
A block, one plus block per game season.
no, Sengun hasn't done it yet, huh?
I'm gonna go. What did I say for Rockets?
I don't want to say Olajuwon,
Wasn't like Kenny Williams?
Kenny Williams. Hmm.
No,
You're thinking of White Sox GM.
no. Who am I?
How about this one?
Dan, this is nice when you don't lose a pick. Like you can just kind of
Yeah.
keep going. Yeah,
Oh,
Vasquez,
too
of course.
obvious.
I picked him on some stat line recently on the Immaculate Grid, and he completely let me down.
Hmm.
Um, what about for Cavs, Anderson Varejao? You think that's a lower score?
Yeah.
Okay,
Comparable.
still not great. What about Sean Kemp?
There you go. Might get something there because I think you with this one too. You can
There we go, gold.
like the one block per game doesn't have to be with the Cavs,
Okay.
so you get some range. It's like I like this because it's so open.
Oh, because it's its own column.
Yeah, yeah. So 25-point game and one block per
And
season. That could be so many people.
yeah,
How about
um,
Artis Gilmore?
yeah,
Bam.
absolutely. Diamond. God, what a photo.
Yeah, amazing.
He's so cool. I love in Winning Time. There was like a clip of them kind of, I think it was like a montage of the Lakers on the road, and there was like clearly an Artist Gilmore,
Totally.
like not a actual character in the show, but just some open casting call for a guy that looks like Artist Gilmore.
Yeah.
God, what an amazing. Um,
You know who I think might have had a 20-point game? Eddie House, right? He was in the Celtics.
I could see
Yep.
that. Yeah, there you go. Um, all right, so
Cavs
Cavs,
Celtics is killing
Celtics,
me.
Shaq.
Yeah, yes. Late career Shaq for both.
Okay, so yeah, everyone's on to
It's
that.
something. So that's the thing too, is now we only have one left. So like it's gonna lock it in if we get that last
Okay,
box
so we
right.
get them
Unless we
all.
unless we
Okay,
want to improve some others, we could
yeah,
just
we
go
can
for that last
improve
one.
some. Let's with Cavs, Celtics. Um,
You know what? Did
Weirdly, not a lot of crossover with that, right?
yeah, I was like convinced that Bob Sura did, but I'm mistaken. Um, that's a tough one.
Chauncey. No, Chauncey didn't play for the Cavs. What am I thinking?
Yeah, yeah.
I was picturing Ben Wallace in
How
the
about
Cavs uniform. Cassell.
all right? That's an
There you go.
improvement. I'll take golds. Absolutely,
Yeah,
I'll take golds.
golds are good. Golds and diamonds. Um,
Cav Celtics is really killing me here.
Wait, so that bottom corner doesn't have to have played for the Rockets, or it does
The bottom right is a Rockets player with one block per
with
game.
one block per game? Okay, got it.
So I'm
Uh,
trying not to think of Matumbo or Elijah Wan.
Pat Riley.
Pat Riley, do you think at one lot he's he big man like that?
No, but
You
if
never
it's a
know.
one, no blocks,
Well, like averaging a block.
averaging a block per
Yeah,
game.
yeah. Because it says for
Got
the
a
season.
season.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got thrown off by the 25-point game.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't think Pat Riley was averaging blocks, but I just love that he played for the San Diego Rockets
Yeah.
with their green uniforms, kind of
Right.
like. Um,
I mean, Barkley probably did.
what about?
Channing Frye.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Let's see.
I just pulled him in the
Nope.
immaculate grid. No. So if whatever we guess here is going to end it, right?
It is. That's why, if we're really stumped, we can throw like Matumbo in there.
Yeah, there's got to be something better that, like, obviously we don't want Yao.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm trying to think of people who also played for the Rockets for like a season.
yeah, there's like a weird lack of player movement that I never. I
Mm-hmm.
guess like for a championship, for the only other team that really won championships in the '90s, uh, there's a lot of like forgettable people that came through.
Wonder, do you think Ariza had a block game?
I
I
can see
doubt
that.
I doubt it was that much.
I don't know about a
No.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's got to be a true big.
yeah. I
That's
feel
why
like
I
they
was
were
thought
so
Sengun.
they were so dominated by their big men that maybe it's Tice.
That's true. We did eliminate him elsewhere. There it is.
Yep,
And it's a
diamond.
diamond. Got it. Love it.
Pretty good.
Better than 61% grids. I'll take it. All right. Love it.
Yeah, man. I think this went better than I thought it would.
Totally.
I was like just thinking of the grief that I'd catch from my
Right.
bandmates if I came on here and like, yeah,
if I sit with this, I'll sit with this on my phone for like an hour, and I'll just like
that's
be
good. I
watching
mean,
TV, and I'll just be like, oh, how about this one?
I'm gonna have to do this with the guys too because every day we finish the grid and we're like, we need more grid.
Mm-hmm. The
Um,
rarity score is great, and you know what? You can go back and play old ones.
yeah, yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, they do that on the Immaculate Grid too.
Right.
I was shocked when they invited me to participate that like because I don't really have like the recency bias stuff on mine. Like I do better with modern guys than I thought I would, but like
Sure.
my polls are like supersonics and like I'm always just like Chris Kaman, boom, or
Yeah,
like
I
some
love a
weird
good
thing
mid
like
two
that.
thousands player. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like straight up 90s, or like what
Mm-hmm.
I love to do is like read up on like the coach's playing career and stuff like that, where I'm
Totally.
just like
Doc Rivers.
Yeah, Mike Dunleavy Sr.,
Uh-huh.
Vinny Del Negro,
Oh,
you
that
know.
Vinny's great. He can play a lot of places.
Yeah, yeah. Like there's always Scott Skiles on like the assist stats and stuff like that.
Yeah. I feel like ever
Um,
since these grid games started getting popular, it's really had me become made me want to be like a historian and like learn more people. And I've discovered some really random players that like I had no
yeah.
idea existed. Like there's a guy, Jeff Ruland, from like the 80s and 90s who played for the Bullets, and he just
Oh, is
looks
he the
like
guy that kind of looks like a banker sort of dude?
absolutely. He has a
Yeah,
mustache, least athletic
yeah,
player.
yeah. He's been like ridiculed in memes and
Oh
stuff.
man.
And then I think people are basically commenting saying like the era he played in, like that means that like, he would basically like shred all over like, the modern NBA. And it's
Yeah.
probably true.
Yeah.
It's um
I mean, you also
yeah,
think that people say the same things about baseball too, that Babe Ruth played against construction workers and
he did, right? But
yeah.
some of those guys probably had more grit than some of these
Hmm.
multi-millionaire,
Right.
General Soreness, Derrick Rose, or
Yeah, yeah.
But
Um so as far as this season, I mean, are you trying to get out some games? How many games do you usually get to for Bulls?
not as many as I would like,
Yeah.
just due to the ticket cost, and I'll probably go out this year. My wife's a yoga teacher, and some of her clients have some pretty good hookups. They're like
Nice.
she has, and last year on my birthday, I got courtside for Bulls Jazz, which
Oh,
like not the top
jealous.
team I would have picked. They were wearing their neon uniforms, um, or I
Fair.
guess it was like the black ones with the
Yeah,
neon
yeah.
letters, and they actually didn't look as bad in person as I thought they would. But Markkinen just looked
Our old
unbelievable.
pal.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's disappointing just because I
I
did
know.
like him,
Same.
and to see him playing well, like I think he would have a really cool role on this lineup. Um,
Thanks a lot,
and it's
Boylan.
yeah, it's God, jeez, it's it's nice that like when these things end, they're over.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I know Billy Donovan is a little bit of like, we'll see how this goes this year. I think he might be on the chopping block, but
Hmm.
um yeah, I mean, this season I'll probably try to get out to like around like 5 games or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think the NBA is just getting to a place where it's like a little more spread out. Like the average, like there's not as many just complete duds of teams. Like
Yeah.
um I try to avoid ever going to see the Bulls play the Magic because they always destroy us,
And
even
they
when
look
they're like
pretty
the
fun
worst
this year
team in the
too.
league. Yeah, I mean, I think they're probably going to be better than the Bulls,
Yeah.
and they always seem to play better, even in the
Right.
worst of times. And like, I love playing Wendell for like rebound stats and stuff like that. Like, um, I mean, I liked him too. It's a shame you can't hold on to guys
I
forever.
know.
It's but I think the league as a whole is a lot more like spread out. Like it's hard to like. I'm trying to think who is the lamest team in the NBA this season.
The That is tough because even like the Spurs, like they have Wemby now. So it's like that's
Yeah,
not
like I want to
lame.
go. That's one of the games I want to go to.
Yeah.
That's like, um, and it's
Like
a maybe a winnable game for the Bulls,
right.
but I would still get to see like that's always like what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it the Nets? Like
yeah,
uh
yeah, I think you're onto something there. I think the
because
Nets are the lane
the only reason they really made the playoffs last year was because of all the work that KD did and Kyrie
early
did early
on.
in the
Yeah,
season.
yeah. I think the Nets are lame. The Rockets are pretty lame,
But
but
even
but
then,
better, but better.
there's
Yeah,
youth. There's interesting youth to
yeah.
watch out for there.
I think
Pacers are they got Tyrese. Like
yeah,
every
that's what
team
I'm
has
saying. Like
someone that's fun to watch.
yeah, like the Magic are typically like I
Yeah.
would probably say the doormat of the NBA, and like
Yeah.
they're pretty good.
And I think
I'm afraid of them.
yeah, and I mean that's probably why I think it's becoming more clear that an expansion is going to happen, and that
Yeah,
we'll probably get Seattle and Vegas back in the mix.
yeah, and I would like to. I think that'd be
Yeah.
great. I think just coming from Vegas this past week, like I know they're talking about bringing the Oakland A's there, and like
Hmm.
part of me thinks that baseball is not as good of a sport for Vegas. Just one, it'd have to be an indoor stadium, which is
Yeah,
always not my favorite thing. Two, like the pace of a baseball game just doesn't feel like Vegas to me.
true,
Um,
true.
I think they would be better to expand into like a Portland or a Nashville,
Absolutely.
or even Montreal.
Or Charlotte.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, like I think as far as the NBA goes, Vegas would be awesome. I
absolutely.
think
They're already
there's
doing so much
so
there.
yeah, and I think for travelers, like because the NBA is getting better spread out, like if I were in Vegas, I'd go to any NBA matchup and just
Hmm.
like put some money on the game and go have fun. And like it's such a star driven event,
Yeah.
and it always has been. Like it was so fun watching Winning Time for that factor, like Nicholson. And I love when there's like during the heyday of the Academy is like I wanted more than anything to let it be known that I was like a diehard Bulls fan and like whatever I could do to be affiliated with the Bulls. It never quite took. I don't think the band got big enough, but like uh I just wore like Bulls jerseys, talk Bulls constantly. Um like Nicholson, Spike Lee, I guess Billy Crystal for the Clippers to a
But there
lesser
are
extent.
there are also bands and just musicians in general who are have kind of become synonymous with teams. Portugal the
Yeah,
Man is very
yeah,
much the drip.
Blazer Country.
Yeah.
Yeah, which isn't quite fair being from Alaska. I
Yeah,
think,
right, right.
but
Fair.
yeah, they the Blazers are so cool too.
They
Like
are.
they're probably one of the worst teams in the league this year, given the changes and stuff. But
As far as
there's something
also like celebrities who like a team, there's so many cool people who like the Blazers.
for sure, and they just have like a cool history. I mean,
Yeah.
when like your most legendary player is Bill Walton, I think you're onto something. I mean,
Uh-huh.
maybe it's Clyde Drexler, but like Bill Walton is very much like an icon of the Blazers, and like
And you get the
he's such a
Jailblazers,
care.
the
Yeah, I
Rasheed
mean that's
Wallace, and
Cliff Robinson. Like I
man.
mean, that's a fun team. I feel like the current Grizzlies are kind of tapping into the feeling of the Jailblazers a little bit,
Oh, I
and
think it's the Hornets.
yeah, I think yeah, I think that's definitely true.
Hornet.
The
There you
'90s, the
go. There,
'90s
that's the
Hornets are
worst
burned in
team.
my memory.
That's the
Yeah,
worst team, easily.
yeah, just a train wreck
Yeah.
situation down there, and like, yeah, I think you're right. I think the Hornets are definitely. It's a bummer that Lonzo's like not really ever gonna play for the Bulls. I think, but I thought it was a big slap in the face that press conference like a month ago where it was like Lonzo in uniform talking. I was like,
Why even do that?
what are
Yeah.
we? Yeah, what are we doing here? Um, but yeah, it was basically. I'm actually really hoping to see Memphis put up a really good season.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, Derrick Rose certainly like I think he's got to be approaching like the end of his career, and
Hmm.
I wanted to see him come back to Chicago, but I'm also kind of happy that he's not, just
It's a
because.
good spot for him to be right now.
Yeah, I think there's a grit to them that I think matches his whole story,
Yeah.
and I would like to see that story end well.
Agreed.
Um,
And hopefully he
so
can shape Ja a little bit.
and I like Ja,
Yeah.
like I think it's an interesting thing, like, not to get any sort of controversy on the podcast or anything like that, but I definitely think that there's a little bit of like, I don't know that what he did was inherently like terrible. Like,
Sure.
we do have the Second Amendment in our country, and like, I'm certainly not like a big fan of it, but like,
Yeah.
it does exist. And I just think that if it were like, I don't know, like, Clayton Kershaw holding a gun and he was duck hunting, that there would be no question about it. But because it's Ja in a dark room with a gun, it's like,
Yep.
and I get that there's a different context between like a Glock and like a hunting rifle, but like, I just, I don't think that, like, maybe he should lose sponsorships, but I don't think the suspension that he got is
Like half a
justified.
season, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's fair at all.
Yeah.
I think that it honestly, and I'm not somebody who's just gonna cry like racism, but I just think it's like rooted in like a mindset that like the NBA sort of is looking at him like a thug, and in
Right.
reality, like I mean, yeah, that's, gangster behavior to go waving guns on TikTok, but like it's also like dumb youthful behavior and like,
Yep.
slap him on the wrist and move on. Like I think what Gilbert Arenas did was much, much worse having it
Yeah.
on the team facility. And
Yeah.
not that he wasn't punished, but it just um I don't know. I just didn't like the uproar that was going on with that. I was just kind of like, and I'm not a big fan of guns, but uh I just felt like there was some undertones in the way that he was treated for it that
Sure.
sort of like, I don't know. I think if he was Mike Bibby or something, people wouldn't have reacted the same way just because his appearance is a little less like threatening to like
Sure.
the marketing of the NBA and like,
That's really what it comes down to, is it's all optics, and they don't
yeah,
want,
and I
you know.
like Jaws optics. I like
Yeah.
that he's got this attitude on him. Like,
His dad is right
yeah,
there, and
it's interesting,
he's
and
doing the
I think
gritty at
it's
half
sort of,
court.
yeah, it's kind of like built a brand for the Grizzlies in a
It
way,
did.
and I like it, and I think that it represents Memphis in a way that is sort of accurate and rough,
And
but
you had Dylan Brooks, who is embracing that villain role despite not being a very good player. Like,
yeah, yeah, and like I thought he was mistreated too. Like I
sure.
like I love when a player defies LeBron James,
You
and like
need those like characters in the NBA.
yeah, that's what makes it fun. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
made the '90s so fun.
Hmm.
I don't want to see situations like Malice at the Palace, but
No,
I do love. I kind of like that you can't just like go out there and like hurl insults at the players and expect them not to react.
of
Um,
course.
I remember there was the thing with Noah where he like said some off kilter stuff to fans and like,
Some stuff with Russ too, like where
yeah,
Russ
yeah,
had some insults thrown at him, and he responds. You know.
yeah, and like, I mean, I when I was young and like still drinking, when Academy was on Atlantic, we got hooked up with Jay Z's seats for a Nets Bulls game, and I went. It wasn't quite courtside; it was like just behind the court,
Hmm.
and I was sitting right behind the Nets bench, and
Nice.
I called Jason Kidd a wife beater to his face,
Oh my
and
god.
I was full Ben Wallace uniform with like a headband, wristband, shorts, like completely drunk on like 10 beers.
I'm
And
amazed you didn't get kicked out for that.
I don't think anyone officiating heard me say it, but
Okay.
Mickey Moore,
Oh yeah, I
uh,
remember him.
he heard me say it, and he kind of got in my face and put me in my place, and then went off and like the in the fourth quarter, the Nets like dominated the Bulls. This was at the Izod Center when they were still in Jersey, and
Shit.
they like it was an inconsequential late season game, but it was like the most involved in an NBA game that I've been. And like
Yeah.
looking back on it now, I'm like, what was I doing calling Jason Kidd a wife beater? And like
Yeah.
obviously there was some accusations against him, but like as a spectator, like I don't know, let the league and the law figure that out. Like I don't need
Yeah.
to go out there
There's
and
still
but I,
people like out there. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah.
just was a diehard Bulls fan trying to be
Totally.
heard and like and talk some shit. But yeah, that was one of the more fun. I was diehard. I went to a lot of Bulls games between 2006 and I moved away from Chicago in 2010. But like in that 4 year window, which was such a great window of Chicago
Hmm.
basketball, because um, the first game back, I hadn't been to a game since like the Jordan era, and I went to a playoff game against the Heat. Um, the Heat ended up winning the finals that year in 2006. Um, but I went to a game and the Bulls were like just good enough that it was getting exciting again. And Dwayne Wade like went off in the game, and I got really excited about him as a player.
Yeah.
And that from that point on, I like just watched basketball religiously again, and started going to tons of games when I was home, and fell in love with Nocioni
Yeah.
um, and just that whole era, watching people come through like Brad Miller, Drew Gooden, Ben Wallace.
Hmm.
Uh, I loved
CJ Watson.
Cephalosha. Yeah, CJ Watson, Larry Hughes,
Hmm.
uh, obviously Luol Deng, and like the core of that
Yeah.
team was super fun. But then all of a sudden Noah came and he completely defied expectations because I was kind of a UCLA fan at that time. I've been spending a lot of time around Westwood in LA, and I hated Noah from college. And then when he came to the NBA, he like put weight on and put muscle on, and like his free throws never looked pretty, but he just had this grit that was reminded me of like Rodman or something, and he became so fun.
Yeah,
And then when Rose came, it was all of a sudden the Bulls were special, and
it's
like
great.
I don't think I even realized how special until now when we look back at it. But I think the pinnacle for me as a Bulls fan, even more than the '90s, was the Celtics series.
Yeah,
Um, and
where
I
Heiner
went
got
to a lot
shoved
of
into the scoreboard.
yeah, and like Rose became a national star during that series, and I went to that game that was like triple overtime. Ben Gordon was hitting all these buzzer
Mm-hmm.
beaters, and it was incredible. And I went. That was Game 6. I went to it, and like in my mind, they were on their way to winning a championship. And I flew to Italy the next day, and I woke up in Rome. And this was back when the internet was like not as accessible,
Yeah,
and like and watching games online was a lot harder to pull off. But
right.
I woke up in the middle of the night in Rome and watched Game 7, and they lost to Boston, and it was devastating.
Uh,
And I think that might have been a year that Boston won the finals.
was that 09?
Yeah, did they win in '09? Like it was
I
like
think
they,
Lakers
it
won in
was the
09.
back-to-back years. Yeah, back-to-back years with the
Yeah.
Lakers. I remember 2008. Yeah, 2008 was the year of Lakers magic when Boston couldn't get it done.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Cavs got bounced too from that. But yeah, that was. I mean, I'll never
Great
forget the
time, yeah.
feeling of being at the United Center when Ben Gordon was draining those shots, and like there was some late game heroics. No Sione was just amazing. Um, so many
It's a good
great Bulls
time.
players. Yeah, it was awesome, man.
2010, I was in college and I was just like, man, this is amazing.
It
Love
was
that
so
team.
promising. And then I remember I moved up to Vermont and I was watching games up there when they were in the playoffs, really loving it. And
Hmm.
um, I'll never forget, in 2012, I was touring with Say Anything, and I was in Mobile, Alabama on a day off, and I was like desperate to get to a TV with the game on. And as soon as I did, the next, like within 5 minutes of getting the TV on, Derrick Rose tore his ACL. And like I remember that sinking feeling.
Yeah.
I think they're playing the Sixers in that
Hmm.
series, and
And they were on
it
their
was
way
just
to win that series, it looked like.
yeah, like everything just looked great. And then God, I have all these vivid Bulls memories. Like
Yeah.
I can remember when Rose hit that buzzer beater. Um, I think it was 2013 with Gasol on the team.
Hmm.
Um,
The one
Rose
where
hit
he's
that buzzer
not making
beater.
the face. Yeah.
Yeah. That like I remember I drove to Indianapolis from Chicago for a gig with Carly Rae Jepsen when I was playing with her, and I got to my hotel room and watched the end of that game, and it was just like to me that felt like the end.
It was his like his swan song a little bit because it's like
Yeah,
people had been doubting him already for like a year or so, and he showed a little bit of promise there that he's like maybe he's back.
yeah. My Bulls fandom sort of like waned a little bit after that.
Mhm.
Um, I was watching a lot of baseball and had some decent years of baseball during that time, and then
Cubs won a World Series.
yeah, and it was special, very special. And I I was driving around in like a snowstorm in February of 2020, like right before the pandemic, and had the Bulls on the radio, and Kobe White was like going off,
Yeah.
and I remember being excited again, and like the team was still. Denzel was such a complete chode of a basketball player, but
uh,
um, I just that was like I remember like a game I can identify as being like, well, now I'm gonna be paying attention again.
yeah.
And since then, it's been pretty fun. Certainly disappointing at times, but um,
It's gonna be an exciting
yeah,
season. Well,
yeah. This
I'll
year,
maintain optimism. Yeah.
yeah, I hate that the Bucks are better than us in every way
Yeah.
and winning championships. I think it's crazy that Milwaukee is a better sports town than Chicago. It really upsets me, but I do love Damian Lillard,
Yeah, same.
and Giannis is certainly hard to dislike.
Yeah,
And now that Grayson Allen's gone, I can
that's very true.
kind of root for the Bucks a little bit. And
Well, if this year doesn't go well, I fully support a tear down of the Bulls, and
yeah, it would hurt a little,
it would,
you
but
know.
you know, that's why I love the NBA. Is like, if my team isn't doing well, I can still love other teams.
Yeah, yeah,
It's great.
absolutely. And but yeah, man, great to connect with you. And
Absolutely.
I'd love to have the football headband on here someday if you're down. I mean, I think we could get really deep into the NBA.
Yeah.
They also like they play basketball all the time, and they play at that court where you did the but not Camp Dogs. What's the band I'm
Rat
thinking of?
Boys.
The Rat Boys. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Camp
they
Dogs is Mikey Russell
yeah, for
again.
sure. Uh, Rat Boys. They play over at that court. It's like off Addison by the Target, right?
Yep,
Yeah, they said it kind of sucks at that court, but
it does. Yeah.
it's one of the spots they go to. I live like right by the Avondale Park basketball court, so there's a lot of basketball that goes on over here. And
Hmm.
apparently, there used to be a basketball court in the park, but the neighborhood petitioned against it. I think it was because it's alongside the highway. It was like bringing some drug deals and shootings
Oh
and
yeah,
things
yeah.
like that.
I have a
But
bunch of courts saved on my Google Maps for future
yeah,
half court
do you
sessions.
play?
Yeah, I play every now and then. I
Yeah,
do a work league, but like there's a place called indoorhoops.com that you can
cool.
sign up for like it's like $12. You're guaranteed to get it's like 15 max people, so you're rotating every other game.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool. It's worth it for sure.
that's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm terrible,
Yeah,
just
same.
absolutely terrible. I wish I was good. I mean, I tried so hard. Um, quick question for you: who's your favorite player of all time,
Of all time.
excluding Michael Jordan?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's an easy question if you think about it. I mean, like we just talked about why I love Derrick Rose and
Yeah,
how much of a special time that was.
yeah, it was.
Um outside if I'm picking like a
Let's go non-Bulls.
non bull,
Yeah,
um something about KD I actually really like, and I don't that's
yeah. I
more
mean,
in the modern world that
he does have like a
KD
beautiful shot. You know, there's
absolutely.
something. Yeah,
There's
there's
his
something
game.
about his off the court persona that
It's
bothers me. Like
hilarious.
I don't hate him, you know, but it bothers me.
KD to me, and I've said this many times, and even on the podcast, I've said it many times that the NBA is to me like a lot like pro wrestling, and
Mhm.
I feel like
I
KD
love that.
really embodies that.
Yeah,
He's got his
the burner
persona.
phones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
He's the
it's
snake.
cool.
The snake is his motif. There's a lot there.
Yeah, he's entertaining for sure. You know, he's always been outspoken and um yeah, of the current like superstars, you know, I definitely do like him.
Yeah,
You know, I don't I'm not like somebody that hates LeBron, but I like to cheer against him. I think the only time I was ever for him was when they beat the Warriors in the
yeah,
finals.
yeah.
I think that was like a good story.
Absolutely.
But the world seems to have forgotten the letter he penned to Cleveland when he came home, in
Hmm.
which he said he'll never leave again.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of where he really lost me. Like,
Mm,
you know, obviously they wouldn't quite be the team they are now if he had stayed. So it's not really like
right.
fair to even compare it. But like,
He
it's got
obviously
to
moved
feel,
for Bronny to go to school and get better
yeah,
basketball.
that's what private jets are for when you're an
Right.
absolute superstar. I mean, I just thought that the whole thing was a little bit like,
Yeah.
you know, I thought if you're going to say that you're never going to leave again, and just a couple of years later you're gone, you know, it's
Hmm.
just, but you know, that's the business. I was somebody that really supported his move to Miami when he did
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
you know.
Interesting. Not
And
many
then
people
that
did.
I did. I thought it was, you know, I thought it was just exciting.
Yeah.
You know, like I love player movement. It's like, uh, what are the big ones this year? Dame, obviously. Um, Bradley Beal.
Hmm.
That's not like super
Yeah.
huge, but
But
like,
I love that the landscape of the league just changes so much year to year.
yeah,
It's so great.
yeah, it's super fun. But
Yeah,
but
man.
yeah,
It's been great having you on. It's been great talking basketball. we'll definitely have to link up at a show sometime soon.
Would love
Um,
that. We're playing the Empty Bottle on the 16th. If you're around,
it's
would it
two
be happy to
blocks from
throw
my
in?
apartment, so
Awesome. Yeah. Well, without telling everyone where you live, you'll have to let me know sometime. Um, I'm over there quite a bit.
cool.
My wife has a studio on like Division in Ashland. She teaches yoga over there.
Nice.
But yeah, come on out. We'll throw you on the list. We're playing first too, so it'll be nice and early. This
Sweet.
band called Cruel is the record release show. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're pretty
Okay.
good.
Awesome.
Um, and yeah, it'll be this band's first time playing the Empty Bottle, which will be fun,
Great.
and the guys would love to talk to you, I'm sure.
Absolutely, man.
When we came across this podcast, like I sent it to all the guys and was like, there's a podcast that talks about music and basketball. This is incredible. Yeah.
It's been a wild ride. It's every time I'm just shocked that there's more and more people to talk to. So it's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. I've still been like jotting down some of the play on words names. What did I do? It's not always like band names. It's sometimes like song titles,
Yeah.
like not Nazi Muhammad, Nazi
Mhm.
punks fuck off.
There was
Uh,
I did something a couple months ago, which actually I did like Immaculate Grid for basketball and music.
that's
Which is
fun.
yeah.
We
I'll
we
have to
were
bring
doing
that back.
immaculate grid for the Chicago local scene. Like
Ooh.
played at the Burlington
Uh-huh.
5 times. Uh,
Played at the Elk Grove Teen Center.
oh man, I'm in that one. There were some like funny ones, just like mocking stuff, like got canceled,
Oh,
or
sure, sure.
like sold coke to, or like bought coke off guy in band or
Very
whatever. I don't
specific stories, yes.
know, stupid stuff. Uh, the Ace of Spades.
Oh, that's there you go. I haven't thought of Moist Fates in years. There's gotta be something else with
Yeah,
them too.
yeah, some good ones. But great to talk to you, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, man.